actually, let's talk about how we are.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Facebook's Elections Live. Sorry, we would have been on earlier, but we didn't want to disrespect any forums that were going on this page, so we just waited till they were done. Good evening, I'm Vernon J. Chief Moon, and my co-host is Robin Littlebear. Say hi, Robin.
Good evening, everybody.
Welcome to Blood Tribe Elections Live. Previous shows was all about getting to know some of the candidates that were running for chief and council and to give them a chance to share their platforms safely with you all due to COVID-19, especially today's numbers of 991 new cases in Alberta today. That's a lot, eh? We have to protect our elders, our immune compromised, and our community, and that is why we are doing these broadcasts daily. In a leadership role, we have to help one another out, and that is why we are doing that today. On Facebook, you can watch us here on Blood Tribe Elections Live. Even if you missed the live broadcast, you can replay it in the feed, or you can watch us on YouTube, Blood Tribe Elections 2020, or tell us via, I always forget that, is it 322?
322.
322, or on Shaw, just pick up your device, remote, push the microphone and say Blood Tribe Elections 2020, and you should see the whole catalog of our shows. Today's guests is us. Yeah. A lot of people inbox us and say, why aren't you guys talking about your platforms? Well, today we are going to do that. We thought we'd just do that on today's program and not overshadow any candidates that are on our show. So that's what we're doing today. So say hi, Robin. Anything you want to say before we begin?
I think that 991 cases today, I guess we got to continue to stay vigilant. We're in a pandemic. We're getting close to that 1,000 cases a day that they've been predicting. I guess we're fortunate. Our numbers are low.
Good job, Connor.
And our community, yes, you're doing a good job. Everybody continue, stay vigilant, and stay safe.
Yeah, we have to, be very vigilant until at least elections, because when everybody goes to vote, we want our numbers as low as possible so we don't have any community transmission. So that's why it's imperative that we continue to be safe, practice, safe COVID-19 policies, restrictions, so we can vote safely, especially for our elders, right?
Mm-hmm. We need to keep everyone safe.
Yeah, I agree. So if you noticed on the back end of our screen there, you see our election sign. So go Vernon.
Go Robin.
Yes.
We're asking for your vote today. Today's, I guess, our turn.
Yes, so we're campaigning on this episode. So episode 7. So hope you guys stay and listen to us. So I guess let's begin. You want to begin, Robin?
Sure, I guess.
Okay, so let's load Robin up and she'll review her campaign here. So just, you guys have to bear with me because I'm also producer working on the graphics part and video part. So just bear with me. So we'll add Robin to the spotlight. Rather, I'll take the pin off me. All right, Robin, then I'll take off our titles there and I'll put your name. So Robin is on the ballot known as Leanne Robin Littlebear. So if you're going to vote for Robin, look for Leanne Robin Littlebear, or remember number 47 on the ballot. Is that correct?
I'm thinking 48.
I better make sure. We have the list here. So Robin Littlebear, 47.
Okay. Wow, 47 in episode 7. I like that.
All right. So Robin's going to load her brochure on the Zoom page. There it is, Robin. I see it. So I'll just move the title over just a bit so we can see your brochure. There you go. Looks good. Okay, Robin, you have the floor.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. I want to start off our question to our candidates in every episode is introduce us, or introduce yourself and what is your platform all about. So, first of all, Nistuana Soyikayaki. My Indian name is translated into mink woman. It's the animal, the water animal mink. My great grandpa Pete Roosehead gave me that name when I was just a baby. And the story behind it is Soyikayaki was one of my grandpa's aunts and one of the ladies that he was very close to. So there's a lot of times I wish I could go back and meet Soyikayaki or the Soyikayaki before me. So that's a little bit about myself. I'm a mother, a daughter, a grandmother, sister, an aunt, a friend. My parents are Gary and Vivian Little Bear. My grandparents are Ed and Ruth Little Bear and Pete and Genevieve Roosehead. So that's where I come from. I guess I could go into, I guess maybe the first thing I should touch on is what are some of the highlights, I guess, from this last term. There's several things that you'll see on my brochure that I'd really like to highlight. And certainly in my platform, you see that there are some things that I know I would really like to be a part of in this next term. I was the chair for B-Test. B-Test is a department on the economic development pillar. So through B-Test, what we did is we participated in a labor market study. And it's still going. It's not completed, so we're in the process of doing this. But I love these kind of things because we need data. We certainly need data to make good and wise decisions. So certainly understanding what's going on out there when it comes to employment is very key. So the labor market study has been a very key focus for me. We also did a training assessment through B-Test. And what our goal was in this assessment was to really look for where are the gaps. It was kind of a needs assessment. You know, do we have duplications? Do we have gaps? What's happening out there? And we were really looking at target groups of our membership, you know, who's accessing what training and what are those needs. So it certainly was a huge focus for me. I also was appointed to a comprehensive community plan committee. And that's the one item, it's actually in my platform. So I'd like to really expand on that coming up next. But I jumped over comprehensive and other funding agreements. That has been quite a focus for us this past term. We have a financial transfer agreement. Everybody calls it the FTA. It's a block funding arrangement. It expired several years back, and we're in about our third year of an extension. Because we continue to look for a more appropriate fiscal agreement. And I'll go into that. It's part of my platform. There's some really important things and activity going on around that. The next thing I've really put in a lot of time, and I think I was really fortunate that I sat on Kainai Board of Education. I sat on Red Crow Community College, and I was the liaison for the Blood Tribe Bus Co-op. So I had sort of all the education entities within my area. So I was able to really focus on their funding agreements. There's some real challenges there. We certainly have a lot of work and have done a lot of work left to do. Actually, I think that's our meeting on Monday, is to come back and look at more numbers around that. But I'd certainly like to talk about that more when I get to my platform. That's been a real focus for me. Connectivity, wow, since the pandemic hit, right away, the schools, Red Crow College, were expressing the needs around connectivity and the issues that they were facing. We started some surveys at the school, so we really started to get a grip and a handle on what was happening around connectivity. So quite a bit of attention has been given to that in the last few months, since about March. Um, Certainly, communications and IT transformation was another big project. It started early on in the term. We have now implemented a new model in communications, and I'll certainly talk more about that when I get into my platform. The next item is capital and infrastructure development. I sit on finance committee, so I was kind of designated the capital person on behalf of the committee. So I work with a lot of the departments, KBE being one of them. We have lots of capital needs there. I'm also part of their capital ad hoc committee, but we certainly had public works there, the lands department, um, lots of things around capital and infrastructure. And with the new mismanagement of assets claim, we've set aside, what is it, $127 million worth of capital funds. So there's been a lot of time and effort spent around capital and infrastructure and planning. So I'm going to get into that as well a little bit more when it comes to my platform. Certainly across all of the departmts I was involved in, I'll just kind of run through a list. B-Test, Blood Tribe Land Management, Blood Tribe Economic Development, Kainai Board of Education, Red Crow, Bus Co-op, Finance, Communications, IT, and Community Futures Treaty 7. So within all these areas, certainly policy is critical. There's always been an emphasis on policy. For Kainai Board of Education, I was the chair for the Policy Ad Hoc Committee, and we certainly had continuous work. There's a lot of activity there. The next item is delegation agreements, internal and external. Internally, what happens is the Blood Tribe Chief and Council is responsible, as you know, and has authority over the Blood Tribe and the Blood Reserve. So when it comes to things like education, health, children's services, busing, all those kinds of things, anytime we delegate a service, we need a delegation agreement in place. So we certainly worked on those delegation agreements. In the past, mandates were issued to departments. In the case of KBE, they went through a ratification where the community authorized Chief and Council to delegate that authority to that entity. So certainly a delegation agreement will be in place for them as well. Externally, we need to look at, we're looking at what's called a 5360 delegation, and that is for land management. So what is happening there, or what happened there, was there's a land regime system that INAC puts First Nations through, and you sort of start at the bottom and you build your way up the system. And it used to be that the 5360 was kind of where you ended up at once you went through all the capacity building stages that they have within their regime. You would end up with this delegation of authority, which gave you control over your land management, which we've been doing for 40 years. That used to be how it went, but they put a moratorium on that. And well, my opinion is that they're trying to funnel First Nations into the First Nations Land Management Act. And that doesn't work for us, you know, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a cookie cutter approach, and we know we're unique. We know we're going to have different needs. And secondly, what's most critical is the fiduciary responsibility that we do not want to sever when it comes to environmental issues. We certainly know that, you know, when it comes to cleaning up, Like even just a gas station cost about $170,000 to do reclamation on. So we certainly know we do not want to sever that fiduciary responsibility that the feds have when it comes to environmental issues. So for those two reasons, we steer towards the 5360, which is a delegation of authority. We want to continue to have that fiduciary responsibility within the federal government to protect us if we do ever find anything that needs to be addressed. So that's an external delegation agreement that we continue to pursue. We've had what's called the rights table. It's brought people from headquarters to the table, and that's where we've been it's been an excellent instrument for us. We've dealt with our land permits at that table, some ammonite stuff, and now the 5360. Certainly some other things. That's where we're working on our fiscal negotiations, and it's actually been very effective for us. There's other issues that, such as border crossing issues, those kinds of things. But it's been a very productive table that's allowed us to sit down with headquarter people and really address and talk about the obstacles that we're facing. And working together, really working with the people that sit at that table to solve problems. Lastly, the thing that I'm kind of excited about is our Blackfoot Women's Empowerment Project. Now that's been a volunteer, more of a volunteer project for me. It's actually through Upagassen, but I've spent a lot of time on it. We recently partnered with the tribe with their store in Waterton. And we've created an online shopping site for Blackfoot women. I'd love everybody to take a look at that website. We've just launched. It's at blackfootwomen.org. So I invite you to go there. It's coming close to Christmas. You might find some good gifts there. And there's lots of information there about the project. We have several women involved there. So that's a bit about what, I spent a lot of my time on, my areas of focus in this last term. Certainly there were a lot of other things, and I'd love to share that. If you have any questions for me, I prefer to have a conversation because there's always so much background to share. But certainly Messenger, what have you. So Vernon, I'm gonna go into the 4 points for my platform. Number 1 being fiscal negotiations and agreements. I guess moving forward for me, this is the number 1 priority for me. Throughout this show, all our, episodes 1 to 5. I've sat on a couple other forums participated in a couple other forums. I watched one today, and, all I hear a lot of, we need this, we need that, we need this, we need that. And, to me, it's cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. And so at the end of the day, it's funding that we need. And there's 2 real, I guess, key fronts when I look at funding. Certainly one is that fiduciary responsibility that the federal government has for us as First Nations. We have this financial transfer agreement, which gives us grant funding for a majority of our programs. Certainly not all of them, but a good chunk of them. Then on the other front, we have business opportunities. And I think you've heard this from Chief Roy and certainly other experts out there. I've heard candidates talk about it as well. But, I guess as First Nations, I always see us, if we want to truly have freedom to govern the way we want to govern and to spend our money the way we want to spend our money, we need economic sovereignty. So that other front of funding and negotiations is the business side, and we need to be really creative, innovative, and smart about it. We need to be able to leverage our rights. We need to be able to benefit from our resources, but sustain them, those kinds of things. So going into green energy, what are our opportunities? Certainly expanding the hay plant is one thing. We've gone into businesses off reserve and now on reserve. And that was quite a process. So certainly, those fiscal negotiations and agreements become quite a priority for us. If we want to be able to implement a comprehensive community plan that talks about parks in all our communities and green spaces and protected areas for sweetgrass and willows and those kinds of things, we're going to need to be self-sufficient. We're going to need to have good streams of revenue coming into the tribe so that we can meet those needs. So it for me, it's number one. It's number one. We need to come to the table with data, information, evidence. We need to be very smart about this. So we need to really rely on our administrators and our experts to pull position papers together, recommendations, options, do environmental scans and SWOT analysis, you name it, so that we can really come down to what's important and have the right tools to negotiate the best fiscal agreement that we can possibly get in any case, whether it's with the federal government or if it's with industry. Secondly, on my platform is the comprehensive community plan. Now, certainly this comprehensive community plan is beginning. It's in its first phase. There's actually 3 phases that we're looking at for this. And I'm going to ask everyone, if you can, go to bloodtribe.org. We do have information there for you on the comprehensive community plan. And I'd like to thank those who did go there and fill out our surveys. We did have some surveys. We had a whole community engagement piece for that comprehensive community plan, and COVID hit. So we did some Zoom engagements, and the surveys were really our best tool, I guess, or one of our tools that we used for engagement. But I'm quite happy with the engagement process for phase 1. Certainly we're not done. There's certainly more to come. But we reached over 100 people, and we had over 200 touch points when it comes to community engagement. So I'm happy to see the 5 themes that they came out with, and I just want to share those with you because I think they're very comprehensive. I think they cover everything, so it really gives me confidence in moving forward with this comprehensive community plan. But number 1, their goal, the 5 themes that came out of all the engagements. Number 1 is improving self-sufficiency and prosperity of our community. Number 2, strengthening community and our sense of pride. Number 3, building a healthy and resilient community. Number 4, ensuring a continuum of opportunity. And number 5, continuing to indigenize our systems and processes. So in terms of this comprehensive community plan, those are the long range plans. That's where we're going. So we've in addition, we've kind of broken things up just to go a little step further and just to one more level of detail. So we can actually take those 5 goals and break it up into the different areas. Number 1 being education, 2, health and social, 3, culture, 4, employment, 5, housing, 6, infrastructure, recreation, justice, and transportation. Sorry. And then within that, based on our consultations, there was lots of ideas shared. I'm hoping to share a lot more. When we go into phase two, we have a whole another round of engagement. So, we're hoping to get out there with this pandemic. Right now it's we need to all stay home and stay safe. Maybe it's Zoom, I don't know, but more surveys as well too. But we'll certainly have to figure out how we do this engagement. So just moving along here. I don't want to lose your attention. So, I'd like to talk more about the comprehensive community plan. Call me, message me. There's certainly a lot more I can share around that. Number 3 on my platform is capital and infrastructure development. This is huge for me. As I mentioned earlier, we have all our existing capital plans and capital projects. We have a 5-year infrastructure capital plan with Public Works, and that assesses our water and sewer systems and what the needs there, costs it out. We have a 15-year road assessment that's been renewed about 4 years ago now, I believe, and about 2018 or 2016 actually. So it sets out all the costs there and shows what needs to be done, and the price tag on that one is $22 million. So in addition, we have the mismanagement of assets claim that gives us $127 million to use as leverage to find additional funds for various projects. And it's been laid out in detail in the trust agreement. So for example, Red Crow College was awarded $20 million out of that claim. So Red Crow is actually building almost a $50 million college. 20 came from the tribe, 20 came from the federal government, and then the rest is through their insurance from the when the school burnt. So, it certainly has been quite an interesting process around capital and infrastructure, and I've really learned a lot in these 4 years. I think the most important thing that I've learned is our biggest obstacle is that the government funds us via grants and contributions. And I talked a little bit about this yesterday in the forum or last night. And that is one of our biggest battles. Statutory funding in the areas of education is one approach that I know KBE is working towards. And we've certainly put a lot of time and effort into coming to that option and that go forward approach, because we're really struggling with our funding formulas. So, when it comes to funding capital and infrastructure, we have so many gaps. And I think there was a lot of comments last night from one of our members I believe he worked with INAC before. And, so he knows that system. And one of the comments he made is how that system brings First Nations or, contributes to First Nations being in poverty. I mean, it's contributed to our unmanageable roads at this time. So I think that's another huge front that we have, is making those arguments to Indigenous Services Canada. It's time that they start, looking at us for our reality, which is we have 1,200 kilometers of road. We have a busing system that buses to several school divisions, about 5. We have police, we have EMS, we have this bustling community. We have 1,200 homes. We're a large land base. To be honest, no First Nation has 1,200 kilometers of road. So we're quite unique in that fashion. And those are some of the types of arguments that we really need to make and come to the table with evidence to show. Like yesterday, I was able to throw in, for snow removal, we get funded $40,000 a year. My goodness. I think on average, we've been spending about $450,000 a year on snow removal. Totally inadequate. So, that is the front line for me. That's where I see my efforts being. And it's going to take a lot of prep, a lot of evidence gathering, a lot of technical work, and certainly working with our administrators. I really have to commend the people that I've worked with, the staff from KBE, Red Crow, and Bus Co-op. We've really worked together collectively to go down this path and really advocate and lobby for more dollars. We are at risk of losing money. There's been a whole education transformation initiative that the feds have recently completed, and it's not good. It's not good. They've actually forced us to implement provincial policies, which in turn, one of the consequences is that we are now subject to provincial politics when it comes to education funding. That should not be the case. So we're actively coming to the table saying we don't consent to this. We will establish our own funding agreement because we are unique. Nobody is as big as us. And that's the reality. There's trends across Canada when it comes to First Nations, and that's what influences their funding policies. So those trends are not common for us. It's not common ground. We have to be outside of that. So we have to come to the table quite prepared. But the tribe is ahead on a lot of things, not everything, but a lot of things. So, I think one of the good things is that the feds are continuously funding us. I guess they're surplus dollars. When they do have surplus dollars, they come to us because they know we're prepared, and we do that. We've become accustomed to that practice. For example, in housing, I think it's less than 20 houses that go out a year for First Nations, and we usually get a good chunk of that. We start out small, and then they come back and they say, okay, we can give you these ones too. So, it's become a practice we're accustomed to. So that means they are thinking of us. We need to continue to build that relationship, to be able to sit down and say, let's get a funding agreement that really works for us, that really looks at the reality of the Blood Tribe. So those things are really important to me. Lastly is our communications and IT. I want to continue to build the capacity in that in those two areas. We have excellent staff. They've hit the ground running. They came on board right when COVID hit. They're now building. I think our model was to really have about 5 communication officers, and we're at 2, so we're getting there. Certainly, we're trying to position the tribe so that that transparency piece is just automatic, and that we're out there, not just on a website and on social media, but in the news. And, Vernon talks about our narrative and what the media, I guess, flavor is out there. And we have the power to change that. We certainly do through our communications department. So those are some really important things to me. I know that department has recently updated or is working on updating their strategic plan, and some excellent work has been done there. When it comes to IT, that is, I think we've gone some leaps and bounds. We're actually getting a new phone system. So I know, like public works struggles. Hey, we get our phone lines jammed, membership struggles because our phone lines get jammed. So through our IT department, we're certainly working on that phone system so that we could have a better system and better customer service when it comes to high traffic calls and those kinds of things. Security, oh my gosh, IT security, we need to protect ourselves. We learned a lot. And things have we've had to upgrade equipment and those kinds of things. Infrastructure, IT's like infrastructure. We don't see it, and it sure costs a lot of money, and it lays a foundation for things to happen, like direct deposits and um, emails and what have you, Zoom meetings, all those kinds of things. IT impacts us. It's an infrastructure piece. We don't necessarily always see it, but it's necessary. So certainly I'd like to continue to put the emphasis on that so that we continue to modernize our systems. I think the next emphasis is policies. There are, modernizing and updating and enhancing what's already there and keeping us, in the moving to the 20 into the 21st century and onward. So that's my platform, and I know I'm getting long-winded here, so I'm going to wrap this up here. I am 47 on the ballot, correct, Vernon?
Yes.
Um, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 19th at the early poll, if that's what you choose to do, or on November 26th, our election day. Thank you. Have a good evening, you guys.
Good job, Robin. Try taking as much notes on your campaign there. I have a question for you at the end, so everybody stick around. I'll ask that question after my campaign. Okay, let's just take off her name there. And people are saying my sign is kind of backwards. Does it look backwards on your end?
Not on my end.
Let's see. Maybe if I go in my settings here, guys, I'll try and fix it here. I'll just bear with me here. Original, mirror, my video. Hey, there we go. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so let's place the pin with my pin. There you go. Sorry about that, guys. It was kind of backwards there, so it's this side. There you go. Thanks, guys, for letting me know. Okay, so I guess I'll go into my spiel here. Now, people were asking, my first week of campaigning, where were my videos and that kind of stuff. My technique was first talking with the elders. I wanted to make sure I got their blessing. I talked to as many elders as I can. So that's what I did my first week of campaigning. My second week, which starts today, I'll be going, doing a lot of forums and talking about my platform and that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate your patience. I really needed that feedback from the elders and, adjust my platform. But it was the thumbs up from the elders, and I really appreciate that. Okay, so I just want to say before I get into my platform, no disrespect to anybody, but this is coming from the heart. So if you take it the wrong way, I do apologize, but it is my platform. Okay. Okay. Hooky again. Nistu Nadanika Akposius, Weasel Tail. Good evening, my fellow Blood Tribe members. My name is Vernon Joseph Chief Moon Jr., and I'm vying for the position of Chief of the Blood Tribe for the 2020 elections. My ancestry lineage, just in case some of you guys that don't know who my family is, I come from the Fish Eater clan, and my parents are Vernon, Chief Moon Sr., and my mother is Brenda, Mistaken Chief. My great-grandfather is Migestu, Red Crow, on my Grandpa John's side, on my Grandpa John Chief Moon side, and my great-grandfather is Jim Shopwell sides, on my Grandma Mildred Chief Moon side. That's her father. On my other grandparents' side, on my mother's side, my grandparents are Philip, Mistaken Chief, the late Philip Mistaken Chief, and Teresa Mistaken Chief. Her parents were Jim Wells and Molly Wells. Just so you know where I come from and that kind of stuff. Okay, so in regards to my education, I've graduated from Cardston High School, did some upgrading at Red Crow Community College until I got into broadcasting with a political science major at the Lethbridge College, where I graduated with honors. Upon graduating, I then moved to Calgary to further my studies in communication studies with a minor in computer sciences, that is, at the University of Calgary. And in the evenings, I attended a private school where I completed my graphic design and multimedia training at the Applied Multimedia Training Center. So I was moonlighting with my education there. After completion of my studies, I then worked for a Calgary marketing firm, which catapulted my career as a top team manager, which landed me in United States, like New York and Philadelphia at a young age. After working with this company for a few years, I then came home, took a short break after a non-stop roller coaster pursuing my educational endeavors. But I was only home for a short while before I found out I was accepted at the New York Film Academy, but at the Los Angeles campus, where I studied film and business at the Universal Studios and then Warner Brothers. I was there when I was there, I seen the behind the scenes of the negotiations and getting capital funding for major motion pictures, and seeing all these people involved come together to make a valuable product, a multi-million-dollar box office blockbuster movie. That's what they call it. Now, fast forward today, I have my own small business in Calgary, Chief Moon Global Media, where I work with clients in capital investment firms, oil and gas companies, architectural firms, and a few First Nations organizations, which gave me phenomenal experience in the business sector and has earned me a white hat from the city of Calgary, which is an honor bestowed by the city, which is their own version of, key to the city. You probably heard that term, right? Well, the reason why I'm vying for the position of chief is to fulfill a promise that I gave to my late grandpa Philip Mistaken Chief and to my grandpa John Chief Moon as well, who both told me to someday come home and use my my education and work experience to help the tribe be a better place. And I feel that time is now. It is now the time to prioritize and move the Blood Tribe in a direction of progressive economic development, technology innovation, and economic and social prosperity. As a vital component of human dignity, autonomy, and personal empowerment of our people, economic freedom is valuable. It is valuable as an end itself to our social problems that our community is facing. You see it on social media, you see it on the news, you see it in the anger and in the tears of our brothers and sisters. It's time to tackle those social detriments of health that is hurting and killing our people. Now, how did we get here? After working with the tribe as a summer student for many, many years, like in all the departments, I worked in membership, I worked in economic development, I worked in management, while pursuing my education, that is, and later as a consultant for the tribe later on. I've seen a clear divide versus the privileged class, those with the high-paying jobs and the positions, and the non-privileged class, the unemployed, students, single parents, and those on social assistance, and the homeless, etc. Over the years, I've seen this clear divide get further apart with some chief and council terms, and you still notice this gap. It has remained noticeable. Mm-hmm. Now, this is very dear to my heart. Now, don't get me wrong. The past chief and councils have had many successes, but there is one problem we need to fix first that has been in most of those chief and council terms. And that is closing that gap between those two classes by at least bringing poverty closer to the level of success of those in the privileged class. For people that don't see this divide, it's the drug addictions, it's the homeless problem, it's the high death rate, it's basically all of our social problems on the blood reserve. Now, how do we attempt to fix this gap? It's by focusing on progressive economic development and technology innovation. At least just this one term where we can create jobs, create pride, and most of all, bring back the respect. Economic development will bring us to economic prosperity and social prosperity. The Blood Tribe needs to stop depending on federal transfer funds as our only source of income. And we cannot always be focused on bringing the government to court, hoping for more settlement funds. That's a long, lengthy process that can take several terms to achieve. It's time to take the future in our hands and pave a solid road to economic sovereignty. As long as we rely and take those federal funds from government, the government will continue to control us and our agendas. Now, if elected chief, I will focus on progressive economic development and create a viable portfolio for the Blood Tribe so we can have sustainable income for years to come for our children and our grandchildren. In regards to a viable portfolio, it is our companies, it is our products, etc. Our portfolio will include some of these projects, if profitable. For example, our own solar farm. Southern Alberta has been recognized as the sunniest place in all of Canada, and we should be taking advantage of that asset. As Canada pushes towards the future of energy production in renewable energy, the Blood Tribe needs to be on the forefront of that race. And a wind farm. We need to continue advocating for this project to get it off the ground that previous council terms have mentioned. We need to make sure it is the right deal for the Blood Tribe. That includes bringing 2 capital investment companies, not just one, to the table to ensure that the Blood Tribe gets the best deal. Another thing we can add to our portfolio, a cannabis plant. We need to look into adding cannabis plant to our Blood Tribe portfolio. Just take a look at the numbers of some cannabis plants in Canada. The profits are they're impressive. For example, just going to grab this paper here. I've been doing my research. Aurora Cannabis. I don't know if the camera can see that.
Yeah, that's good.
Going through their financials. Aurora Cannabis is in Edmonton. All right, not too far from here. Aurora's financials for the 4th quarter, that's 3 months. A quarter is 3 months. So 2019, their 4th quarter, were quite strong compared to previous quarters. Their net revenue was $95 million for 3 months. In fact, net revenue increased by 61% from the previous quarter. Another cannabis company is Canopy Growth Corporation in Ontario. It reported a 4th quarter result in 2019, so that's October, November, December. The company made $90.5 million in its first fiscal year of 2020. Just 3 months, $90.5 million. And it's now positioning itself to bring CBD products to the US market by the end of the fiscal year, as the US is slowly legalizing cannabis. The Blood Tribe needs to be in that forefront, as this demand will dramatically increase when the US becomes fully legalized. Another venture, you've probably heard this, a casino and or resort, We need to add that to our portfolio, if viable, that is. I will ensure council looks into the best viable and profitable proposal for the Blood Tribe to get into the gaming market. Either it be getting a resort on the north end or using some of our acres land to be put into a city center to run this casino resort or other projects. And also continue the success of BTAP to continue exporting our Timothy hay to the world, continuing those relationships and agreements with Japan, Saudi Arabia, and expand new agreements within North America, like marketing our products at our doorstep. At the Calgary Stampede, we have cowboys, those linked to livestock coming to Calgary. We need to expand our product line there as well. Now, also getting to franchises. We need to add that to our portfolio. I'm just going to load a video here just to give you an example. All right. Let's see if it loads here. This is an example of the kind of marketplace, and right across where we have the land designation, we could put a Tim Hortons there, right? Now, what's the purpose of putting a Tim Hortons? Well, I'll explain. We have to get franchises involved in our economy. Franchise systems on the reserve, like Tim Hortons, Walmart, Dollarama, etc., to aid in creating our own economy by helping our monies stay on the reserve. Now, the reason why I put Tim Hortons in that video, it's a huge staple. So many of our people leave off reserve to go to Fort Macleod to get a Tim Hortons coffee or, mocha, donuts. By having one in that, we're drawing people to that area. And not only, getting monies from that, from the Tim Hortons there, the franchise, will also be drawing traffic so people can go to the Kainai food market. So that's how we can use franchises to leverage our money to stay on the reserve. Okay? Now, the important thing about franchises, they'll aid in creating our own common economy, like I said, keeping the money on the reserve, but they'll also provide employment and job training to our people that have no interest in farming or the energy industry products we may have. And franchises will also aid in our small business vendors and entrepreneurs by drawing traffic to the areas they're established, like I mentioned. Now, these are just examples of companies, services, and products that we can add to our Blood Tribe portfolio that can lead the tribe into sustainable income, surge in employment opportunities, program funding, infrastructure upgrades like plumbing, roads, snow plows in each zone. Now, sometimes you have to create a vision, show a vision, to help people react. So I'll just push this button on my Zoom screen. And Robin, I think I accidentally put your, oops. I'm trying to load this here, guys, on my Zoom here. Just 1 second.
Hey.
Okay, so Robin brochure, press the wrong button. So sometimes you have to create a vision for people to understand. So on your screen, if we have money, if we have, a viable economy, money in the bank, we can meet those infrastructure dreams, wish lists. So that's just to give you an idea there. We have to envision it to create it. All right, so that's an example by infrastructure upgrades. And like I said, snow plows in each zone, improved technology infrastructure for the Blood Tribe. That will include negotiating with Shaw or TELUS, for example. Having, them coming on the reserve and advocate, let's see here. How can I explain this? Negotiate with Shaw and TELUS and have them come on the reserve to offer their services, for example. In return, advocate for community television. That's a clear exchange. Bring your service on the reserve. In return, give us community television. which can be an asset for emergencies and community programming, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me see if I'm missing anything here. Which can be an asset for emergencies, like I said. So now, how will we be progressive to ensure that the projects don't stall throughout this term? Now, this is important. I will implement an administrative directive system like municipal governments use, such as the City of Calgary and the City of Edmonton, to ensure all projects and programs and orders are carried out in a timely fashion. These directives will be issued by Chief and Council to ensure they are followed and carried out in a timeline provided. This system would sadly highlight those that don't do their job, but it will also highlight those that do their job and the employees or the departments, and they should be rewarded and recognized respectively if they're doing their jobs. Now, all band employees would have to adhere to these directives issued by Chief and Council in an effort to progress together and to make sure our projects see the light of day, especially in the same term they were implemented in. So, how would a lucrative portfolio benefit the Blood Tribe members? Most of you want to know, how does this affect me? How will I benefit from this? That's what people ask themselves. If elected chief, I would implement a dividend, kind of like a stockholder's option. I'm just going to load this on the screen here on my Zoom here just to help you understand. Sometimes we just need to see graphics to tell a story here. Okay, this is a dividend stock option system where we have all our projects. For example, we have our settlements, we have our wind farm profits, we have our solar farm profits, we have our BTAP forage profits, then we have our cannabis profits if we go down that lane. This is an example. And we have our franchise agreement profits from Tim Hortons example, Walmart, Dollarama. Those are just some examples. Then we'll have our casino resort profits. And then we'll have our technology profits and others. Sorry, take a drink here. And other projects that the tribe has invested in. Now, it could be every 3 months, every 6 months, every 3 months or 4 months that we can take a look at those profits. So let's just say, for example, we did every 6 months. So we did every 2 quarters we paid out our dividends, okay? So let's do a little math here. So let's just say all these dividend stock options, all our projects the Blood Tribe is running in our portfolio, let's just say all these made $200 million in profit. All right. So every 6 months we pay up to $200 million. We'll pay, for example, this is an example, 30% to band members, the dividend stock option, and then 30% back into companies and the organizations that made those profits. So like the stock ops, like the products or the companies, 30% will go back into them. Then 40% could go into capital accounts, trust accounts, programming, infrastructure upgrades, etc. This is just a simple graph just to give you an idea what I'm talking about this dividend stock option system. All right, so like I said, let's just say all these made $200 million. So we have to pay 30% back to the people in 6 months. That breaks down to $44,000 each. Okay, so $200 million, 30% of that is $60 million. You spread that amongst the population of the tribe, 1,350, that's $44,000 each. Now, let's say we only made $100 million with all our assets. 30% of $100 million is $30 million. And split that amongst our people, that's $22,000 each. So that just gives you an idea. I know I put that on there. I just needed for you to see this graph, this policy, that would ensure a percentage of all our profits that will go back to the blood tribe and our people. Now, this will ensure none of our people are left behind. These profit shares can be paid out every 6 months, like I said, or yearly. And if, they are making a lot of money, we can even go quarterly, every 3 months, when we have a lucrative portfolio. Right? So, other priorities in my platform would be continue the COVID-19 response. And change, like Robin explained, change the narrative of our people in the media by creating positive news around the blood tribe. If our neighbors see us progressing, it would change the way Napiguans see the blood tribe. We need to write our own narrative. We're getting to the point we're seeing so much negative in the news that we're starting to think bad about our people. And it shouldn't be that way. We need to take control and write our own narratives. Now, create frontline services also to our city members that live in Lethbridge and Calgary. I know it's quite the drive for that, especially those in Calgary and Lethbridge. To have frontline services for you, that'd be another thing that I'd like to focus on as well. So I know time's running out. I can touch on many things. But to conclude, by implementing what I just talked about, would ensure transparency. It would ensure economic sustainability for the blood tribe, which means long-term economic growth without negatively impacting social, environmental, and cultural aspects of our community. Also, prioritizing economic growth would give us the funds to tackle poverty, restore human dignity, help us fight other social detriments of health, improve our infrastructure, and most of all, would restore pride, not only for our nation, but towards each other, respectively. Now, on November 19th and November 26th, I humbly ask you to consider voting Vernon Joseph Chief Moon Jr. as your chief. As one elder told me early in the week, not only is it the year of the Joes, Joe Biden, it's time to make our nation proud again. For this term, let's make economic and social growth a priority. Again, be safe, everyone. And I apologize if I seem emotional. It just means really dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job, Vernon.
Thanks, guys, for listening. I really appreciate it. Whew, that was... All right.
Hey.
Okay, so we're going to go to the second component of our platforms where we ask each other questions about our platform. So, Robin, you had a lot to talk about. Great platform is, all I got to say. So my question to you, Robin, in regards to capital and infrastructure, why has it been so hard to clear roads during these past few snowstorms? And what is your approach to this issue?
Okay, good question. I actually got this question yesterday too, and we got 2 minutes, and there was so much more to say. I'm going to try and be as brief as possible. Certainly, I've kind of explained some of that. It's how we're funded. Indigenous Services Canada, through their capital and infrastructure department, have guidelines, funding policies, and then we have our FTA. They have funding formulas that dictate, the money that comes down. When it comes to snow removal, we get through the FTA, and this is our federal funding, we get $40,000 in funding a year. On average, it's costing us $450,000, and that doesn't always include the contractors that we have to pull in when things get overwhelming, like it has been in these last few days. And so if you ask me why has it been so tough, the bottom line, the straightforward answer is money. We just don't have enough resources. So because we don't have enough funding, number one, and the resources, we don't have enough machinery, we don't have enough staff. I think ideally, I know Joe Healy said, actually this term we funded 2 snow blowers with a loader the last couple of fiscal years, to try and address that need. But Joe said, ideally, we need a snow blower and a loader in each zone. So 6, we need 6. We have 2, we have a ways to go. We did a road assessment. Our roads are basically unmanageable in these conditions of this state of being underfunded. First of all, we didn't build these roads, and whoever built them did a terrible job. And all it has done is cause more and more and more problems. And just thinking of equipment, there's been a lot of really good solutions that people, and candidates are putting out there. But at the end of the day, it cost us money. So, certainly we do have an emergency fund. As I had mentioned, our funding's minimal, so we do have to contribute. But Public Works Department certainly spends way more than $40,000 on snow removal. And I know we just recently had to allocate more dollars for snow removal. So it's an ongoing issue, and certainly our revenues are limited as far as ban revenues. So it's a huge challenge, and to fix all the roads, we're looking at $22 million, and that's not the equipment either. So that's an additional cost. So we have a long way to go, and my approach to this certainly is to continue to lobby the federal government to say, I mean, be realistic here. We can provide all kinds of evidence that $40,000 does not cut it for snow removal. There's tons of evidence. We see it all over Facebook in this past week. So I guess those continued negotiations, that continued lobbying and advocating for more dollars is certainly one of our approaches. We do have, as many incumbents have shared, we do have a claims that are coming up. So I think that's another approach we have to look at. The next chief and council needs to really prioritize our road infrastructure in this next claim. It hasn't been decided how that money would be spent. So our next council really needs to put an emphasis on our roads. I mean, if it's not 22 million, we need to start somewhere. We have to do something. So, I guess in going forward, the short-term solution is to continue to lobby for those funds, continue to contribute where and when needed. But I think we have some opportunities coming down the path to really address this issue. Thank you.
Good job, Robin. If you like Robin's campaign, see, where is her name? Right there. She's number 47 on the council candidate list. If you like to vote for Robin, she goes by Leanne Robin Middlebear. Let's make this important note. I think your mic's off, Robin.
So I was just saying, I'm one of those kids who their parents called them by their middle name. There seems to be so many of us. But yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's your turn to ask a question. I'm very nervous.
Your platform made me curious. I had lots of questions. I'm not sure what I want to
An
ask.
emotional platform. I apologize.
No worries. That shows passion. That's good. I guess what I thought about, Vernon, you and I have wanted to do a talk show for years. We joke about it and casually say, "Oh, we got to do a talk show." We're finally doing a talk show
Yeah.
on election time. And I think of all the years that we worked together, and I know last term you ran for council, and this term, you're running for chief. I guess my question, Vernon, to you is, what has made you make that decision? All the things you talked about, could all of this have been implemented if you ran for council? Why or why not? And
Yeah. Okay, good question, Robin. Well, some of you may know I ran for council last term for council, and pretty much my campaign has been pretty close to same, except with the ugly selfie picture. It was economic growth, but this campaign is economic and social growth. Now, the reason why I'm running again but for chief is because it's really all the ideas I wanted for the blood tribe. I see the other nations implementing. Like, for example, when I had on the photo, the franchises, I was told at that time it can't be done because we're on the blood reserve. But, I explained there is a way. There's taxation kickbacks to franchises, and they want to get on reserves because they'll be saving millions of dollars in regards to taxes, in municipalities and that kind of stuff. So there's a huge vital tax write-off for franchises to come on reserve, as well as program kickbacks to the community. Like, for instance, the Walmart, for example, in South Lethbridge, the money it kicks back, it's usually about 10 to 15 million. It all depends on their profit sales for that year. Sadly, it can't come to the blood tribe. Even though we spend all our money there, it has to stay within Lethbridge. So that's one reason of, having a franchise on the reserve. Well, anyways, the reason why I'm running for chief is if I got in as council, the chief sets the narrative. So if the chief is, I don't like to say old regime, but in the old ways of, chief and council, I was scared my projects wouldn't see the light of day because we have to, follow the narrative of the chief in technically, old school ways of governing our people. So to see that progression in these projects, I think it has to happen in the chief position, then filter down throughout chief and council, the departments, etc. So that is why I'm vying for the position of chief. So we can set the narrative in regards to, like I said, economic growth and social growth. So that's why I went for the top, because, I know about the business side and I also know about technology. So I think we can progress faster if I was at the top versus under a traditional old school chief. I don't like saying old school, but it's what you guys understand. So that's pretty much why I'm running, Robin. If we want to have, fast progressive growth, it needs to happen at the top.
Mhm. Okay, well, thank you. I guess we understand now. Thank you, Vernon. Um, I don't, I'm just thinking, I think in closing for today's show, I don't know. I mean, I had a really, 2 minutes, a short time to answer a big question
Yeah.
yesterday. And I just wanted to share it with our audience today. My question was, if you got all these millions, what would you do with it if you got on council? And my answer to everybody was, I wanted to buy fishing rods. And and a few people, what? Why did you say that? It was kind of crazy. But of course, I explained why, and it goes back to, I explained it. I said, that saying of, why go out and catch fish for your community, teach them how to fish, and they, become independent and self-sustaining, and that's what our community wants. I guess in that comprehensive community plan, that engagement process, that was a clear message. And I just wanted to close off with that in case anybody watched the forum last night and was wondering why I wanted to buy fishing rods, to educate our people. The tools to go out and get a career is what I want to do. And the main reason is I know 50% of our post-secondary applications get turned away. I know that not everybody gets funded for upgrading. We do have lots of in-house programs, and in September, we very purposely run a youth experience program to get people, our young people, out in the workforce. And I know people get turned away there, so we do have a shortage of training dollars, and we really need to keep our people busy. We want to close that divide that Vernon just talked about. Yeah, I guess that's what we need to do. And
I just want to
so I
grab
just
my
wanted.
sign here for a second, and for people that cannot see it. So when you guys see it out in the community, you can explain it to your friends and family. See, this was, oops. Okay, so this is our economy right here. As it goes up, my ring light is kind of reflecting off it. So as our economy, goes up, and these people here, we're helping people, myself, all the way, our employees, chief and council, all the way helping our homeless, etc. As we, become successful. So you can explain that, my sign, once you see it in the community, to the people. It was hard getting my face in with the sign. But yeah, so that's what my sign means, guys.
Awesome. Well, folks, thanks for joining us this evening. We'd love to chat more. So certainly give us a call, messenger us, inbox, whatever it is, text. We certainly love to chat more if there's any questions out there. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our show, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode and previous episodes of our chief and council candidates. Like I said, when me and Rob had created this show, we wanted to help those that needed the social media expertise to help share their platforms. And that's what we wanted to do, is help our fellow candidates out, because that's how it should really be, especially during COVID-19, to protect everyone. So that's the purpose of this show. It's not a forum, it's a show to help bring those candidates to the forefront and share their platforms with you. Well, that pretty much concludes our show. If you want to vote for myself, you can find me under the chief section of the ballot. If you want to vote for Robin, she's on the council ballot, and she's number 47, Leanne Robin Littlebear. Well, that concludes our time, folks, and thank you for joining us. I know it was kind of late, but we wanted the last forum that was on the page, to finish before we came on. So that's why we're kind of on here late. Well, that concludes our show, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you very soon. Just a note, we're going to be taking Tuesday and Wednesday off because me and Robin want to focus on our campaign, getting into the communities and that kind of stuff, dropping brochures. So we're taking Tuesday and Wednesday off so we can get into the community and do some of our campaigning as well. Safely, that is. Well, that concludes our time. Robin, anything to say before we sign out?
Just good night and thank you if you're still listening. I know it's late.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us, and you guys have a good night. Talk to you later.